a video on social media of ice raiding an apartment complex.
Well, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Pastor Jeremy Austill. We're back. If you watched last week's, today is going to be more of a part 2, but we'll still do our normal podcast style.
Sounds good.
Go ahead and hit the like, hit the bell. You know all the things to do. But we'll jump right in with our interesting. I'm a history nerd.
Okay.
Are you a history nerd?
I wouldn't categorize myself as a nerd, but I enjoy history. I mean, if you're like, hey, these are the classes in school, pick.
Yeah.
I'm picking history over math and science and whatnot.
Okay.
So I do enjoy history.
So in the last week on a Australian beach,
Okay.
a bottle with a letter was found.
Oh, wow.
From World War I.
That's cool.
So apparently on the way to combat, the guy dropped it over the side of the ship, and they think it probably within a couple of weeks washed up on the beach. Well, then it just got buried over the years.
Yeah.
So it's 109 years old.
That's incredible. Now, that is like fascinating. That's
I kind
nerd
of figured
stuff.
you would be like,
Bro, that's incredible.
And they were actually able to track down the guy's family.
Really?
So the guy died within a couple months of writing the letter.
Wow.
And so they were actually able to track down, I think his only living relative was a great nephew.
Okay.
So they were able to, and he was like, yeah, I know who that is. Like, I've
That
heard
would make sense.
stories.
I mean, somebody that's gone to war, I mean, especially if he died in battle, he was young. I mean, he wouldn't necessarily have a
right
strong ancestry because he didn't live long enough to have kids, grandkids, etc. That's wild, man.
Yeah. I was kind of nerding out. I was like, that's really interesting.
That is super cool. You won the day. That is a great nugget.
Yeah. So then, I just thought it was really unique. So for 109 years, it's been buried and somebody found it.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it looked old, but it was honestly pretty well preserved being in that, whatever the bottle he put it in.
That's crazy. Stuff like that's interesting to me. So much of what we know about ancient civilization is just writings that were preserved, little details. And you wonder now that we're in the digital age, like what is the footprint? What is the thing that people will look and just learn from our civilization?
Well, and we dig up archaeological finds all the time, and I've been seeing this funny post where it's the picture of the Bucky statue.
Oh,
and they're like, in 5,000 years, they're going to dig up this statue and think we worshipped a beefer.
Bro.
which is hilarious.
Because it's like bronze or whatever.
Yeah, it's like.
This civilization.
These people are wild. Can you imagine the stuff they're going to write about us?
That's incredible. Yeah, you do wonder because, you just think even 200-300 years ago, it was so archaic compared to now.
Yeah.
Human civilization has progressed just exponentially, almost immeasurably in the last 100 years. And you went like thousands of years and there was just incremental progression. And then, bro, in the last 100 years, 150 years, it's been nuts. So we got another thing happening. I hadn't gotten an update, but somebody sent me something yesterday. Apparently there's something flying in space that is working its way around the orbit of the sun. And apparently today was going to be the day where we figured out, was it just another meteor that was kind of odd that gets burned up in the Earth's, heat, or is it extraterrestrial and it's going to survive the burn of the sun?
We need to find that out.
Yeah, I don't know. Jonathan, have you heard it? I saw you laugh. Did you know about it?
Yes.
Have you heard yet? What do we got?
No, I don't know. It's just going to go, as of right now, just going to kind of bend around the sun and go back out of the solar system.
Yeah, but supposedly if it survives it, if it doesn't just get annihilated as close as it's going to be to the sun, then now we know
that it's
extraterrestrial.
I mean, didn't they do a whole congressional hearing like 2 years ago where they brought out some body of an alien, is what they said?
Bro,
I don't remember
that. I remember somebody.
I feel like I remember that.
Well, I remember that they found one in Mexico, and then it was like, bro, this is the biggest hoax ever.
This all feels like a big fever dream.
and so like I just think about, it seems kind of routine now that scientists, astronomers, is that the right? It's not astrology.
Those are, yeah.
Astronomers.
I don't know.
Whatever. The people that look into space. That every so often now, every couple months, they see something that looks like it might be aliens. And so
we're consumed with finding life on other planets and out in the solar system.
Yeah, but we don't protect it here.
Right.
Bada boom. Anyway, that was
that was where I was going in my mind, but I was
you segued so great last week. I just went for the nuclear segue. So
well, hey, sorry to interrupt, but just wanted to bring to your attention on November 16th, we're going to be having a Miracle Sunday here at Cornerstone, where we're going to be receiving a special miracle offering, where we're going to be going to support the plant of Cornerstone Hendersonville, which I'm biased to, but excited for. We're going to be going to support some of our strategic partnerships in our global with Priority One and Convoy of Hope, as well as supporting the ongoing ministry of all that God's been doing here in the house at Cornerstone. So I just want to invite you to be in prayer over the next couple of weeks about what God would have you do, and let's watch God blow our mind with what he's going to do. So last week we dove into the Pope made a statement in an interview where he talked about you can't call yourself pro-life and be in favor of the death penalty.
Right.
You can't be consider yourself pro-life and be okay with the inhumane treatment of immigrants.
Right.
And so last week we dove into capital punishment, the biblical stance, where we kind of fall on the spectrum of it. So today we're going to keep going. We're going to take the second half of his statement, where he talks about you can't be pro-life and be in favor of the inhumane treatment of immigrants. And I some of the talk that I have seen online was just kind of this, like that one felt really out of left field compared to the other two comparisons. So it's like, okay, that was a little, and I think that's where it caught a lot of traction because of even that statement in particular.
Yes. Well, it's obviously under the Trump administration and really under the Biden administration, a massively hot button topic. I mean, to the point that it may have been the dominant, or at least one of the two or three dominant pressure points that decided the election. Yeah. So it's such a hot button topic, but I talked about it last week. I feel like the Pope was very irresponsible, and I just thought he leveraged abortion, which the Catholic Church has been against forever, and he just unfairly leveraged something that is blatant for 2,000 years of church history, blatant in the Bible. Abortion is an evil, and we talked about people that have abortions and the grace and mercy there, so we don't have to rehash it. But the fact that he connected such a political talking point that does deal with humans to abortion just felt like, for quote, the man of God, it just felt very loose and irresponsible. Right. One thing that I don't know that I'm really interested in trying to define it, but the word inhumane that he used matters because, yes, as a believer, we love people. People are made in God's image. People are image bearers. Inhumane treatment is, we are completely against it. Now, how do you define inhumane? That's, and I'm not interested in trying to define it. I just think, each person filters that word and they see imagery and they decide what is and isn't humane, humane. And I don't know. I have my own ideas of what that is. But like, absolutely inhumane treatment is something we as believers should be against. Yeah. But it just felt like it was way more loaded than inhumane, as I would define it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I'm reading the subtweet, the subtext of his comment, it was really it felt more like an anti-immigration statement.
Yes.
And that obviously.
Or anti-deportation.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously he didn't say that, but that's the tone, especially with all the conversation that's around it.
Yes.
And I'm 29, so I didn't get to vote until the first Trump run, 2016. Yes. That was my first election voting in. So I didn't get to vote in the early 2000s, but from what I've read and heard, it felt like for years within the political sphere, it was kind of a middle of the road topic. Everybody kind of agreed on most of the points.
Yes.
But now it's become very polarizing.
Yes.
Especially within the last 10 years or so.
Yes.
So,
I mean, if you go back and listen to clips, and when in the 90s, I wasn't paying attention to what politicians were saying. Like, the extent of my knowledge was who the president was, and Bill Clinton did some stuff. You know, it was kind of like, I was a high schooler, middle schooler, college kid. I wasn't super engaged, but you now, obviously, because of technology, clips surface of what politicians said in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. And it is striking how similar a Ronald Reagan and a Hillary Clinton statements were. You know, that and at times how people, you know, that are Democrat said things about immigration that now you would say, well, that sounds like,
sounds conservative.
Sounds conservative. So yes, probably, you know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it became polarizing. I think just because immigration became a pawn in the political game.
Yeah.
And I think that's sad because we are dealing with humans. And it is complex because it is humans. But it's very different now. And I know you got some thoughts that you want to share and some questions you want to ask. I would just preface everything I say with a couple of thoughts. Anything I say about, and I think that let's make a distinction, immigration, deportation, it's kind of it's in the same vein, but those are two distinct different talking points.
Yeah.
Anything I say about immigration is highly mindful of the 10 to 15% of our congregation that was born in somewhere not America.
Right.
You know, that were born on other continents, born in other nations. And I love that we have a church of people that are from all over the world. I love that. It excites me. It's something I'm passionate about. And so anything that I say is very mindful of a love for them, a care for like their story of how they came to America, where they are in their process, either as citizens or on the way to citizenship or here with various visas. And another thing I'll say is I'm a pastor. I am not an expert on immigration law. Like I'm not an expert on the process of becoming a citizen. I'm not an expert on the various concessions that our government makes so that people from other nations can be here and live here, whether permanently or short times. So I just don't know all of that stuff. And I do think it's comical at times when you see people on social media that, I mean, the extent of their knowledge is a well-written Chat GPT search. Right. And I'll admit, like, I do Chat GPT searches too. I'm trying to learn constantly. And so my first focus is like the people that God has assigned to me. And I want to make sure that I'm very respectful of their experience and where they are. So that's one. Second, what you're seeing when it comes to the conversation of immigration in the church context. Now, I'm not talking about what the politicians are saying. I'm talking about in the church among believers. There's a lot of hostility among believers at this point, a lot of accusation hurled between believers, and a lot of Bible being used to dunk on each other. Yeah. I've seen so many, I guess they're not tweets anymore. I guess they're posts on X. I've seen so many posts. It's like, let me grab this scripture. When a stranger sojourns in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a native among you. That's Leviticus 19. I've seen Deuteronomy 28. The foreigners living among you will become stronger and stronger while you become weaker and weaker. I've just seen these scriptures used to try to dunk on each other. And I just back up and say, I think it's really dicey to take Old Testament Israel, New Testament church, and compare it apples to apples to living in the American context.
Mm.
In neither of those scenarios were you living with a democracy. Both were very different. Israel was a nation that God was creating as a set apart people so he could get his son into the earth. The church was born into the Roman Empire,
Right.
and they counted themselves as foreigners and strangers and aliens in the land. And so I think saying, well, let me find 3 scriptures and use that to like lock in my case. I just think it's dicey to say, here's Old Testament Israel, and I'm just going apples to apples as a Christian in America. I just don't think that's wise. I think it's not intellectually, I don't want to say honest, but I do think some people are intellectually dishonest in that. But I think more so it's just not well thought out. And so I just point those things out because I think when you have these types of conversations, there is what is the responsibility of the believer and the church, and then what is the responsibility of a nation, a government, an institution. And on some level, as a believer and the church, I want my nation and government to handle people according to biblical precedent, have laws that can lead a society into good things. But at the same time, I've got to know that my role day in, day out is different than the judicial system, the congressional, arm of our nation. They have a different role and responsibility. And so kind of living in the tension at times of all of that. Yeah.
And that what you were saying that just popped in my mind. Somebody's rebuttal to some of that would be, well, what about separation of church and state?
Yeah.
And I think a couple weeks ago in one of your sermons, you addressed kind of the separation of church and state. And like, we are way misusing what that was originally.
Yes. And everybody uses it at their convenience.
You're right.
Right. And I personally believe separation of church and state, just based on the original documentation, was not to keep church out of government, but to keep government out of the church. Certainly to make sure that the church did not the government did not weaponize the church. And at the same time, even more so, that the government did not oppress or suppress or try to tell the church what to be. I think that was the original intent of the statement. And then we go back to, what documents govern us more. We talked about the First Amendment on Sunday a little bit, freedom of religion. And again, another tension point of, the American Constitution, the First Amendment says there's a freedom of religion. Like our governing documents, basically, I think the original intent was first freedom of Christianity. But I think big picture, like we as the government are not going to force a specific religion on you. But as a believer, I want my government and I want my nation to operate in a way that is in alignment with Christianity and is in alignment with helping us like create a society where people are more ripe to receive the gospel. And so freedom of religion, that is, but I feel like sometimes Christians, like they go to bat for freedom of religion more than they go to bat for evangelism, and it's like, man, as in like, people can believe whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. That's in our Constitution. Yes, but as Christians, we are called to win the world, to preach the gospel, to tell the truth. Yeah. And sometimes that means that, like, we say, hey, there might be a freedom of religion, but all of them lead to hell, except Jesus. And that's, again, even you say that and that feels abrasive, but anyway.
Well, I think I think the reason it feels abrasive is we live in a society where we're either all justice or all mercy. But we fail to realize they go hand in hand.
Right.
And so when we approach a subject like immigration, you've got the side that's like law, and then you've got the other side that's like, well, let's just give mercy and let's give grace and let's, what would it, if it was your kids, what would it,
Right.
But I think that there is a middle ground.
Yes.
And so we have to kind of find.
Well, it's always the hold the tension. I mean, anytime you're talking to me, we're going to come back to, you got to hold the tension. It's not this or that. It is this and that. And you got to live in the discomfort of trying to hold on to both, knowing at times it will feel impossible to hold on to one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked yesterday. We were talking about this,
Mhm.
our pre-conversation. Just we as a society hate tension.
Yeah.
So the thought of having to navigate any kind of tension, we're like,
That's
no, I
not
would
black
just,
and white.
yeah, I would just rather not do that. You
Yeah.
know, that's our kind of our go-to. But the life we live and
Mhm.
what we have to,
Right.
have to we have to navigate tensions. So one of the tensions that within this, you and we talked about it, and I think if we're talking about the inhumane treatment, is you've got immigration and then deportation,
Mhm.
but some of the stuff that's surfacing about it is striking. You know, with
Video footage. Yeah.
stuff that's being posted. And so I don't know if you just want to make any statements on that, like some of the stuff we're seeing that's being used and kind of weaponized, even on both ends.
Yeah, I think just in general, as a Christian, there has to be a wisdom and a sober mindedness about us, like a determination to not react, but instead to scrutinize. Everything in society is trying to get us to react. It's trying to, whether it's a commercial trying to get us to react to buy a certain item, or it's a newsreel that's trying to create fear or what have you. And so to be sober-minded and to scrutinize, and that's whether you're watching, a video on social media of ICE raiding an apartment complex, or you're watching a video of Muslims having a call to prayer in the middle of a street in the United States of America. Like we see those images and it creates a response in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to, anytime we're seeing that, or whether it's listening to Fox News, CNN, Newsmax, MSNBC, whatever your preferred, whoever you like, I think we have to live at the front of our mind with the question, is this true? Is this true? Like, I think to responsibly consume content means that the front filter has to be, is this true? Not how does this make me feel, but is this really true? And not just is it factual, because a video is okay, I see it. Mm-hmm. There's fact. Somebody was grabbed. Somebody's praying in the street. But is it being depicted truthfully? Mm-hmm. Is this isolated or is it pervasive? Like, what is the setup? What were the things said leading up to me seeing the video? Is there sauce and seasoning in this to manipulate me in some way? Because we are living in a cauldron of politicization.
I think you got it right.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay, well, whatever. If I didn't, the objective is to win, in the political spectrum, and the best way to win is to charge people emotionally. And in being charged emotionally, we become more deeply entrenched in our thoughts. And so I just think as a believer, is what I'm seeing true? It may be factual. That might be a thing, but is this being said to cause fear in me, to cause anger in me? What's the objective of this? It's the, golly, how many videos are we going to see of people getting in fights? It's like, my gosh, you can't go to a ball game fighting. I don't think I've ever been to a ball game
and seen that,
seen a fight. It's not pervasive. So I think just knowing that, and sometimes because our social media feed, it is all of the extremes, you'll start believing the feed. You'll start believing what the algorithm is sending you. And you're just like, my gosh, Muslims are taking over America. And they may be. I don't know. I'm saying, let me take that back. They may be. I don't know. I do believe that an objective of Islam, I think it's baked within the Quran, it's baked within the culture, is to take over regions by multiplication, to change culture. I do believe that. But, how pervasive is that in America right now? How pervasive are the ICE raids on apartment? I just think we have to be careful. And so I would just say to anybody listening that's part of our church, be sober-minded, ask if this is true, ask if this is accurate, and then not be manipulated emotionally. Like, let me come back to what's true. Let me come back to principle, and let me live in the realm of principle. And principle isn't just rules. Principle is like, how do we handle people too? So those are just some thoughts there.
Well, and I think we have to, one of the things I would add is I wish we would be slow to share.
Oh yeah.
Because we're just grabbing stuff. And we're in a day and age where like AI stuff looks pretty legit.
Oh yeah.
And it's like kind of terrifying. And people will just grab stuff and share it.
Yes.
The new trend right now is people sharing quotes from like celebrities, but they're not real.
Right.
But you would think that this is real. This is legit. Like, and people are sharing it like it's gospel truth. And it's like, what are we doing?
There was one day on Facebook where I was scrolling and no less than 5 different athletes ironically said the exact same quote about LGBTQ pride, whatever, all saying like, I'm against it. 5 athletes that said the exact same thing in my scroll. It's just it's like, you might think after a while, maybe these are like generated, like dummy sites. I don't even know what the point of them is.
It's wild though. But, and like, so even some of these videos, I'm like, is this true?
Yeah.
Like is this even real?
Yes.
But, we live in this society.
And that shouldn't make you, paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least for me, I'm not paranoid about it. I'm just sober minded.
Right.
I am not going to allow myself to be emotionally manipulated by that, or at least I'm going to try not to be, but I'll admit that sometimes I do get emotionally manipulated, but trying to be sober minded. And I say that because around the conversation of immigration, to bring it back to that and maybe put some more concrete thought to it, like there is so much emotion attached to it that as a believer, we got to step back and say, okay, what's biblical? What's right?
Mm-hmm.
What does my heart need to be? Like, what do I need to, how do I need to see my government? All of that. So do you have any thoughts? And then I can share a few more.
No, we can dive into those segments. Cause I would say that in order for us to, I think, navigate it right, we have to be able to see that I can have compassion and sympathy while still wanting to maintain law and order.
Yes.
And so that's kind of for me, a biblical perspective of like, I can have compassion and sympathy and care deeply about the issue while still wanting a safe environment and while still supporting laws of the land instead of it being, it's either this one or that one.
Right. And also have the intellectual capacity to know that, not every person that's here that is, quote, undocumented or illegal, whatever term. Because even if I say undocumented, some people will get triggered like, it's illegal. Like, I mean, we just need to chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
But that they're like, not every person is nefarious.
Yeah.
And so that creates another tension. I vaguely remember diving into this in high school lit of Les Mis. In Les Miserables, I can't even say it right. Isn't that where he steals bread because his child is hungry? Is that right, Jonathan? You got it? Yeah, I ain't either.
Sydney is. If she watches this, she's gonna be mad that
I don't.
I think so. I think he steals something. I think you might be right. It's bread.
Yeah, and so just the human compassion of, man, if somebody's desperate, can you fault them? And so it's complex. So here's thoughts, and I shared this a few months back in the church, and so this isn't. I think I've been pretty upfront, in how I feel. Number one, immigration has been good for America. Remember, immigration, meaning the process of somebody coming to America, becoming a citizen, becoming a contributor to American society, is a really good thing for America. It has allowed some of the brightest around the world to come and enhance the American experience. So it's a good thing. It's a good I was going to say good system. Obviously, it's a flawed system, but the premise is good.
Yeah.
And it's something that we should celebrate. I think it's something that we should be proud of in America, that when other nations severely fail their citizens, that people want to come to America because they can find safety and they can find opportunity. I think that is something that as Americans we should be proud about in a good way. I also think we should acknowledge that there are other nations whose governments are treacherous and they do not create opportunity and they keep the nation in poverty. And so it's understandable that humans in those contexts would say, man, I want opportunity. I want something different. And I think it's wonderful that we as a nation have paths for those things to happen. And so, man, our nation is what it is in large part because we have had a path to citizenship or a path to be here for a season to grow and develop. I mean, a path to be educated here and go back and be a great citizen and enhance the society of the nation that you're from. And so I just, my heart is, man, this is a good thing. But bottom line, there's just no other way to say it. Like the previous administration failed Americans because for the length of our history, though the debate has certainly been waged in the political realm of what are the best immigration policies, what are the best paths to citizenship, should we make it easier? And again, I'm not an expert. Maybe it would be great to have a conversation with some of our congregates who are citizens from other nations, and that path, that process, talks about it should be easier. Should we create amnesty? Should we grandfather people? All of that kind of stuff. Like those conversations have been with us as a nation forever. But the previous administration, the Biden administration, wronged our nation because for a time, it seems they completely disregarded all systems and structures that had been established in our nation for hundreds of years on how a person can come and integrate into American society. And as a result of open borders, and as a result of that, you had plenty of people that came because they were in desperate, dire situations looking for opportunity. But we also know that you had people that are trafficking drugs, people that are trafficking humans, people that are gang affiliated and they're running from government, what have you. And I would just say flat out that I celebrate our government hotly pursuing anyone that has come to America and they were a criminal in their nation, or they're involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking.
Yes.
They are nefarious or they are a detriment to our society. Any American that does not celebrate their the pursuit of those people, the apprehension and the deportation is an American that's cutting off their nose to spite their face. Like that element does not help our society. And we talked about the Romans 13 last week. The role of government is to create safety, to create justice, to protect society. And so now what we're seeing obviously is an attempt to rectify something that was very wrong. And was, I don't think, just a violation of our American society. I think it was a violation of all the people who have immigrated to America and went through all of the process and did things the way that they're supposed to be done. I believe it was an offense to everybody who has come here and has done the hard work to go through every hoop and every bit of red tape to become an American citizen or to be here for a season, a time. And so now we're in a moment where there has to be a rectifying, a pendulum swing to stop. And I think what we're seeing statistically is the quote, the borders are secure. I mean, I don't know how, who knows what that means.
Right.
But the borders are secure. So the first, like the problem has been dealt with, the thing that created the problem. But now it's a matter of how do you repair what's been done. And so to me, I am for law and order. I am for following the proper path. I am also simultaneously for people having due process, people being treated with dignity, respect, and honor, people being handled like a human being, not inhumanely, right? And I think as a Christian, I can think all of those things and not have to be extreme and not have to be shouted down. I can think like there was a governmental wrong, and now decisions have to be made to try to rectify that. Right. But at the same time, and I told our congregation, like I renounce my nation mishandling people if they've not broken laws, handling harshly or inhumanely those who've, even if they've not followed proper legal procedure, like let's handle them well. But I'm also a man of principle. Like here's the law. Everybody needs to do things according to the law. And if people navigated around the law, then there needs to be a moment where they are kind of brought back into like, you need to now, like the law is the law. You don't get to circumvent the law.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I guess has bothered me in this, I hate the thought of somebody being mistreated.
Me too.
Like that, bad. It drives me nuts. And so when you see these videos or you hear these instances where people are being mistreated by a government or, by a response of that, like that should grieve us.
Yes.
But it should also grieve us for the people who have done it the right way.
Yes.
And it took years. I mean, Cindy and I have a friend who it took her years to get her citizenship. Yes. And then you've got people who are just trying to circumvent the whole process, and that should grieve us too. She spent a lot of time on that, and was the first in her family. So it should grieve us either way. Like we should hold the tension as Christians. Like I can care about this and still care about laws being upheld. And I think that's where it's like when we say stuff like that in our culture, it's like, oh no, you can't. Like you can't say stuff like you want law, but you have compassion. It's either one or the other. Right. But we have to learn how to navigate both of them.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people are, and maybe this is just how I feel. When I see all these posts online, I don't know everything about everything.
No.
And so I have to filter it through and we've talked on this about I can't have empathy out of 10 in every single category. Right. And so it's like, is this really worth me getting completely worked up over? Because there's people, you could post anything, they're going to get worked up about it.
Yes. And what I see, I'll tell you something that works me up is, I'll see a believer that, again, is trying to dunk on other believers or make accusation against the character of other believers because they would, lean more one way or the other. I just think all of that is prideful. Mm-hmm. And then I'm 100% with you. Like, I don't know enough, and I can't have an empathy on the level 10 on everything. Right. And I think sometimes as Christians in America, we struggle with this. All of our information we get, it feels like, is on a national level or even on a state level. But like as believers, like our first theological responsibility, is our everyday life and who we're coming in contact with. And I just think, like, as an individual, and I told our church this, like, our responsibility is to love who we come across, care for who we come across, to preach the gospel to whoever crosses our path, to be compassionate and kind to whoever crosses our path, to to be generous to people that cross our path. And so I think for the believer, it would be wise sometimes to say, hey, let me take a break from the national deal, and let me like get back into my everyday life and look around me and see what's happening. And because I think one dangerous thing that can happen is like we develop a like villainized filter, and I just think like we have to be careful to not have a heart that gets tainted by what's happening all around us. When we talked last week about immigration, we said abortion's not really a debatable topic, but capital punishment like is debatable, and immigration is debatable. Deportation is something that we should be able to talk about and understand that there's biblical and spiritual boundaries, and that we honor. There's governmental responsibilities that aren't the same as my responsibility as an individual believer, and just kind of to live, I guess, just a little less dramatic and a little less emotional about it all.
Yeah. And I think somebody could listen to this or could grab a soundbite from this and say, well, why don't y'all just focus on being the church and not getting political? That would be, 10 years ago that nobody would have said stuff like that. But now we're in a place where it's like people are pushing that. Well, you just need to be the church, not be political. But it's like, well, as pastors, and this is something I'm learning as planting a campus, I'm not a department lead. I'm a pastor. Like I'm pastoring people. Like people are navigating this.
Yeah.
And I am doing people a disservice by not addressing it.
Yes. And I'm learning that too. I'm learning that if this is what the people in the body are processing and working through, and if the people have had accusations hurled at them, because it's like, well, I think this, and then you just get attacked by other Christians. Like I think this is a part of pastoring people in the world in which we live. And you see it all through the epistles. Paul, he was pastoring the people in the context of Corinth. He's pastoring people in the context of the Roman Empire.
Right.
There is, it's not so much, quote, being political. It is trying to help the body, the people of God, navigate the terrain that they don't have a lot of control over.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a vote, but we don't have a lot of control in what the White House does or what Congress does or what our state government does. We don't have a lot of control over, what funding does or doesn't happen, or on ICE, or we don't have a lot of control over that stuff. And so there's so many things that we don't have control over. What we can control is we can govern our heart, steward our heart. Good. We can have the right mind, the right spirit, and navigate the terrain that we don't have control of. So that's a lot of what I feel is important when we have these kind of conversations. It's like our people are dealing with this. They're working through it. And let me just say something. And my goal is not, let me make shock statements. My goal is not, I'm just going to be ironclad definitive this, because I don't really feel that way.
Yeah.
I read the two scriptures from Leviticus and Deuteronomy earlier, and what you'll see is like people quote one or the other, and it's like, this is my stance, right? Whereas I'm saying laws are laws, principle is principle. Millions of people have honored the laws and done things the right way. Everybody should do things according to the law, and when they don't, there is consequence. But consequence should be humane. It should be according to the laws that have been written. And generally speaking, like the role of government is to protect its citizens, to bring justice, and to provide opportunity. And in the matters of immigration, when it is not governed appropriately, it creates potential danger. It is unjust to certain segments of our citizenship. and it potentially minimizes opportunity.
Yeah.
And so the role of the nation gets compromised when it does not honor its laws on immigration. Likewise, as the church, man, I love people. I care about people. I want people to be handled in a way that is honoring of God. And as a citizen of America and a lover of God, I think it is beautiful and one of the best things about America that we are a nation that has been really intentional and celebratory about immigration. But this has been said, and I think this is important. Like America was built on certain ideals and a certain desired society. And I think anybody that comes to America, they naturally, understandably are going to bring their heritage and what's precious to them. But we are creating a society collectively that we all agree on. And that society is governed by its laws and all of that. And so it's like, hey, you're not coming here to take over.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mean by that, like I think of Islam coming to take over. Like, no, like that's not, we are creating a certain type of society. Now, as a believer, now that's a whole nother conversation about Christian nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want a society that reflects Christianity as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like as much as humanly possible, you know, when you talk about government and all of that. Anyway, but we probably need to wind it up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just any closing thoughts, you know, my heart for as a pastor is how do people navigate stuff like this?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I wrote down when preparing for this was just that the parable of the 10 virgins. And I know it feels, but like our priority should be making sure like there's oil in our lamp.
Yes.
So like if we're doing something or engaging with something, fighting over something that could deplete my oil, you know, then I need to caution myself,
right,
and be prepared. And even in that, like I should view everything as a chance to share the love of God, to evangelize the world. And so I need to start filtering stuff through those lenses as a Spirit-filled believer. Like as a Spirit-filled believer, like my call is not necessarily to the nation, but it's to God. And so I have to live differently.
Right.
And I have to process things differently. I don't have the same rights as everybody else does.
Right.
And so I just think that could help us process things better. So any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just think we talked about something that is such an emotional topic right now in our nation that a lot of pastors don't talk about it because they know the potential is ripe for offense and anger. And, you know, it's not been my objective to so tiptoe on the line that I'd try to make everybody happy. I've just been pretty honest, you know, about how I feel. I just keep coming back to who we are as a church. Yeah. We're a church of all kinds. We're committed to that. We're celebratory about that. And like that is a major influence on how we see the world. Like that we are a church. We are a church of God's kingdom, and His kingdom spans every nation, every ethnicity, every economic status. You know, every backstory, every history, Anyway, I can make a million balancing statements to try to make sure I was understood well or not misunderstood or heard appropriately. But, you know, if you didn't like something you heard, then just go back and listen again and make sure you didn't miss the context, I guess would be what I would say. Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, go ahead. You can like, subscribe, comment down below, or hit the bell so you know when we're posting. And if not, we'll see you Sunday.